Hey guys, Brad from Blue Nile Farm. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to take a cheap piece of steak and turn it into a masterpiece by infusing salt or pepper or basically any type of rub. You know, and we're also going to tenderize the steak at the same time. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you an idea and a concept that will change the way you cook steaks forever. So I've always tried to figure out ways to take steak, like these rancher steaks here that are really don't have a lot of fat on them, and or some low cut uh, types of steaks that are basically more on your stringy side or tough side, like your London broils or your shoulder cuts. And I kind of refuse to go to the store and spend $35 to $40 for a steak. You know, I prefer to basically take a cheap cut, try to tenderize it the best I can, and turn it into a delicious um, morsel. And so today I'm going to kind of show you things that I've learned that will really help you take a cheaper cut of steak or maybe a steak that is kind of tender and make it even more tender, but also be able to infuse seasoning into that steak. You're going to get a more tasty meal. And what we're going to talk about first is an item like what's known as a Jaccard. This is just a company that I bought my first one. It's made by JY Cookment. And what it is basically 48 blades that basically are spring loaded and will go into the meat that will actually pierce it and will tenderize it and break the muscle fibers. And I find this to be a great tool to use to help me in making these things more tender. And the object here is that instead of using like a fork like people traditionally would use, this thing here, if you take it into a piece of meat, you just push down on it and just bounce your tool up and over the steaks. Even though I flatten it out, I'm putting lots and lots of little holes in and breaking the fibers. And so if I go in different directions, I'm having hundreds and hundreds of little holes ingrained into the meat. And if I flip it over, I would do the same thing. So what you will have is, you can see all the broken fibers made by this Jaccard style tenderizer. And then what I would do would be to salt this generally and let the salt work itself in and maybe cook it just like that. But if you're interested in using salt and pepper, what you can do is take the same steak and assume that we didn't poke any holes into it. And if you take salt like this diamond crystal and salt your steak, and maybe you might want to add pepper to that steak, and here's just a peppercorn that we're going to knock in. Traditionally, if you took this steak that we have right here, you would actually take it, throw it on the grill right now, and all that peppercorn would be lost. But what you can do is take your tenderizer and start pressing it into the meat. And what you're doing is you're infusing the pepper and the salt into the meat. At the same time you're tenderizing. So what will happen is that generally the salt itself will work itself into the meat and actually not only create taste, but actually help in the tenderizing process. But you're also infusing pepper that you normally lose into the meat as well. So we'll do both sides. Lightly coat our salt. And then, again, add more pepper. So what's happening is, because the meat is wet and because this thing is flat based, and then those knives when they're pressed into the meat, not only are poking holes into the meat and tenderizing, but they're pressing that pepper deep into the meat. And what you could see here is, not only do I have the muscle actually broken, but I also have the pepper ingrained with the salt into the meat. Then I would set this aside and let it rest for maybe an hour, so it would actually work into the flavor and also get the steak close to room temperature, and then I would cook it. So this is one way of preparing. Now another way of preparing a steak is, here's a secondary rancher. Now what we're going to do with that rancher is I'm going to show you how to infuse a seasoning. I'll just set this one aside. So this one we're going to actually take a seasoning, and it could be any kind of dry rub that you want to put on a steak. And we're going to do the same thing, but instead of just going in immediately and taking our Jaccard style tenderizer, what we'll do is take our salt, just a little bit, and put it on our steak, not a lot. And then we're going to use this. This is basically a prime rib seasoning that I really like. And again, just like pepper, I like to put this on pretty heavy. I brought this brand new, so I gotta take the label off. It was funny, for a long time I didn't really know what to do with this seasoning, and then I started doing this method, and I'll tell you, I love it. I already went through one whole bottle of this. But take your seasoning and just put it on. Put it on relatively pretty heavy, if you like. Then again, you take your tool and start poking it into the meat. And what you're happening to do as we're doing this is the salt and the dry rub is actually getting pushed into the meat and that seasoning. And every time I press in here, I'm putting 48 holes in. So what I have right now on this one side is a piece of meat that is now infused with your seasoning and some salt. So we'll do it again on the other side. Sprinkle, put seasoning down, and then poke it in. So there you have it. Now you have two steaks and two different styles. One style is pepper, salt. This one is salt and a prime rib style seasoning. Now, at this point, you can do it any way you want it. You know, even if you just want to have salt on a steak just by itself, put some seasoning on it or salt. Again, use your tool, press down. And I don't count how many times I poke it. I just poke it till I feel that, you know, this is all smoothed out. And you can take a big heavy steak and actually flatten it out. And what's going to happen is this will actually cook faster for you too. So you keep your eye on it. And you won't burn it. I think almost every steak out there needs salt. That should be the minimum. But when you can infuse pepper, which is traditionally something that burns off all the time, or your seasoning and get it into the meat, makes a huge difference. And you can notice here where we're working. You know, I put seasoning down, salt down, pepper down, and right now I have nothing that's in the way. So this one's just straight up salt. So it doesn't matter what you infuse with. It can all go into the meat as long as you use a tool similar to this. There's a lot of them on the market. This is a JY Cookment. I really like it. It's the first one I ever bought. This is the medium size. And you can really do a lot of wonderful things changing your steaks. And it takes not necessarily a real good cut, but a poor cut piece of meat that's normally very tough. And you can really make it softer. And also, more importantly, you can ingrain it with a rub or a pepper that normally you would burn it off. And I think that just changes the game 100%. And I suggest too that when you cook your meat, if you really want to have juicy steaks, I don't do anything without my trustworthy thermometer. I cook a lot on the Blackstone. That's where these are going to be cooked on tonight. The thermometer, I like medium rare. When this temperature hits around 125, I pull these off and I let them rest. And normally they're cooked just the way I like them. So watch your temperatures. Basically, try this method. I'm going to tell you right now, this tool here retails around $20. It's worth every penny that you can, and you're going to change your way of cooking steaks. Will change completely. You know, I grew up, unfortunately, my mom burned most everything or overcooked it, and I learned to cook with a thermometer. And the more I started cooking, the more I really realized I really like and enjoy a good steak, but I also know that I'm limited to my cash flow, and I really don't see no point in spending $35 or $40 for a piece of meat. If I was going to do that, I'd go to a restaurant. But for myself, my girlfriend, you know, we cook steaks a lot, and we like to cook and eat good. And I think by taking a cheaper steak, being able to infuse uh, different types of seasoning, and just having salt and pepper ingrained into your steak, it changes the world completely. And again, I like taking a bad piece of meat and turning it into a diamond. And this is really works out real well for me. I suggest you try it. I think you'll really like it. But get this tool, because for $20 you can't go wrong. And then try to do this infusion. Because a lot of times most of us spend a lot of money buying a rub, and the rub falls off on our grill. And I cook on a Blackstone griddle, and I lose a little bit of seasoning, because you are going to lose a little. But you'd be really surprised how much of that actually is retained in the meat. It's well worth the money. And try this method. I guarantee you, you're going to change the way you cook steaks after you try this. So what I'm going to do right now, since we got a little bit of time, this one has salt. I'm going to just put pepper on it because I just rather have some pepper in the salt. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. Put the pepper in and infuse it. So now we have salt and pepper. So I'm going to prepare all these, and I'm going to throw them on the grill. And I'm going to make these other three, I'm going to ingrain them with my salt and my seasoning. And I'll have two of them that are salt and pepper based. You know, a lot of times I believe that when I grew up, my mom would burn everything. I grew up using basically all the Heinz 57 and the steak sauces because the meat was so dry, it needed a little bit of help. But now, since I started doing this method and I use a lot of salt and pepper, I really do everything I can in my power not to use sauce. What I rather do is to make a great steak, make it medium rare, and enjoy the seasoning or the salt and pepper that I infuse into this meat. And it really just makes it, to me, more mouth-watering than to taste just a sauce. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the sauces because sometimes I do enjoy them. But like I say, is if you can enjoy a steak and enjoy the seasonings that you ingrain into your steak, I'm telling you, you're going to be on a whole different planet. And what's nice about this too is you have a steak that maybe be a little thicker. You kind of flatten it out. But again, if you pay attention to your temperature gauge, pull these out right when they hit about 120, 125, you'll have pretty much a medium rare steak the way you like it. I like to pull it around 120 if you can, because the time it sits for 5 minutes, it's still cooking inside, and it will elevate its temperature. And again, the thinner the steak, the quicker you want to pull it, because if you overcook it, you know, you're in some big trouble. You know, these steaks here might only take 2 minutes on each side, you know, now that I flatten them out a little bit, and that works for me too. So again, we're just going to do these 3 steaks right away, real quick. So we're going to salt them. We're going to take our seasoning, prime rib seasoning. I'm going to lay it on there. I'm not afraid to put it on, but you're going to notice too as I put it on, again, this tool will just push that seasoning right into the meat. Do the same thing with this one. Now, before we used to make these rancher steaks, and what's nice about the ranchers, they don't have a lot of fat. My girlfriend doesn't like me to eat a lot of fat. So, unfortunately, on a ribeye, you'll have a lot more fat to it. But these ranchers are mostly muscle. So what this tool does is really just breaks that muscle down where it's just a lot more tender. Now I'm pushing down. I'm probably going in maybe a 1/4 to 1/2 inch, and I like to cut on a cutting board. I think that's really your favorite too. All right, so both of these are done, all the sides. We'll flip them over. Again, more salt, not a lot. You know, when I started my seasoning journey, I did what everybody, I've tried that salt method where you really laid that salt on pretty heavy. But once I got into this Jaccard style tenderizer, it was all over. Oh, forgot to put my seasoning on. So stick our seasoning on. And let's poke it in. For the amount of seasoning I have on here, normally it would be all over the place. And I'll tell you, it really goes into the meat pretty well. And what's nice is you can try all kinds of different rubs and all kinds of different ingredients that are on the market, and really get a true sample of enjoyment when you have a way of infusing. And this is really by far the way to go. So now we have both sides completely done. Both of them are infused, and they'll both look really good. So with that said, I'm going to throw them on the grill, pull them off when we're done, and I'll let you see what it looks like. So this is what we have right now. 6 steaks ready to go. So I want you to take a really good look at these steaks. Obviously, these steaks here are the ones that were been ingrained with that prime rib seasoning. And you can see the red color and that seasoning ingrained into the meat. These steaks here are salt and pepper, and you can see the pepper has been ingrained also in the meat. And the salt would obviously melt off and you won't see that, but it's flavoring the meat. So I'm going to put these on the grill. I'm going to show you what it looks like. We're only going to have a little bit of loss of seasoning, but you'll be really surprised how much is retained. So I'll get cooking, and when I'm done, I'll show you what it looks like. And here they are on the Blackstone. This one here and the other one across from it's the pepper. These 4 are seasoned steaks, and you can see the seasoning still on them, and it really didn't burn off. So they're just cooking away. So here they are after grilling, and they're just going to rest. And again, the top ones are going to be your pepper, bottom are your seasoned. And again, you can see all that seasoning still on the steaks, and believe me, it's going to transfer into their flavor. So this is the outcome of cooking this method. And not only do you tenderize, but you're also infusing, and you're going to make a tastier steak from this point forward if you try this method. So this is my suggestion, and it's a game changer. And for 20 bucks, you're going to have more tenderized steak and a lot more flavor. And again, it's creativity is up to you and how you want to do it. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you try taking a cheap piece of meat and using that Jaccard style tenderizer and then infusing it with salt, pepper, seasoning, or whatever you desire, you'll be more than happy with the results. And I guarantee you're going to change the way you cook. Also, if you can monitor that temperature and keep that thing just about medium rare, I guarantee that taste and that steak will just be juicy as all get out. So with that said, thanks for watching guys, and I'll talk to you soon.